It is growing more and more apparent to me each day that there is a spirit of lust to destroy the dominant in society. And there are so many people that are camouflaged by status or any kind of car they drive or the way that they talk to certain people, who they choose to talk to. All of these play a factor in how they want their image to be portrayed to other people. And in this video, I want to talk about why you cannot reason with the unreasonable. And so, with that being said, if you support content like this, the best way to support it is to comment, like, or subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate all of the comments and the likes recently, as well as the emails that I've been getting. And if you do want to send an email, I have a link in the description below. And then also, if you want to start a consultation process or a consultation session with me, please feel free to schedule one and reach out via email as well. Without further ado, let's get more into the topic for today. So, a lot of people can make promises, but there are very few, or rather, the real ones are the ones that can keep the promises. And you've got to be careful with a lot of the people out here, because they are not exactly who they say they are. And I'm not even telling you that you should completely listen to everything that I'm saying. My goal is to just open your mind and awaken your own consciousness to your own freedom of thought and freedom of speech. And my promise to you is that I will do everything that I can to make sure that you are empowered to prosper via inspiration, motivation, music, or just making these YouTube videos. And then I have some other things in the pipeline that I'm working on as well for you guys. And I just have to say that it is a great pleasure and an honor to be on this side of history, because there's genuine good and genuine evil in the world. And those that do not understand that are very misled and mistaken, because these people that are acting out of evil intentions, they are acting out of maliciousness. They're acting out of overt defiance to God, because they do not care what God thinks or God says or any of God's laws. And it's so funny to me, because they're so quick to follow, usually, the laws of the government or the laws of the state or whatever they have laws in, but they don't want to follow God's laws. For some reason, they're okay following the laws of man, but not of God. Now, I can see why a lot of people don't want to follow the laws of God, because they believe that it's made up. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all when these people wrote the ancient texts, like the Bible. I think they saw what made society flourish, and I think they saw what made society die. And they just looked at it and had discernment, and they were like, yep, that works, that doesn't. When the society is full of harlots and loudmouthed women, where their daughters are going to be acting as harlots as well, the society kind of goes downhill. When there's no strong men around, and they're emasculated, and they're effeminate, the society goes downhill. Interesting. And then on the flip side, when you have men that are closer to God, that are closer to spirit and truth, the society seems to be stronger. And then when you have women that are virtuous by their purity, they're not harlots, they're not acting like harlots, they're modest, and they're submissive to the men. Granted, the men are worth being submitted to. The society flourishes. I think it was really as simple as that. And that's what God's laws are. I think they're just recognitions of what works and what allows the society to flourish and what doesn't. And we have to understand, as spiritually awakened people, that there's a difference between being spiritually rebellious and being emotionally incompetent or emotionally rebellious. You cannot reason with an emotionally unreasonable or an emotionally incompetent person. But a spiritually rebellious person, you can reason with. That's the difference. And so, as C.S. Lewis said, no man knows how bad he is until he tries very hard to be good. Especially with semen retention over this past year and 1 month or so, I didn't realize how much... I knew it was going to be fairly difficult, but I didn't realize how great the temptations of lust would be along the road sometimes. There were some really harsh temptations about I guess 10 months ago. There were some really harsh temptations of lust for me. And I made it through and I passed God's test, but it was like opening a door that I always wanted to open, but then when I opened the door, I realized that the party in that door was not really as fun as I would have hoped. And then I was kind of stuck in that door. I was stuck on the other side of the door anyway, for a long period of time where I had to just completely restrain and control my urges. I didn't repress them, but I had to restrain them internally. And it's gotten easier and easier and easier with this journey, but there are still times when I'm going to be tempted, because as long as we're alive, we're going to have temptations of some kind. We're not perfect. We're not perfect. And if you're striving for perfection, that's great. Keep doing that. But also know that you'll never reach it. This is a mistake that I had made long ago, where I figured as though I would be perfect one day. I'd have the right finances, the right emotional strength, the right physicality, the right spirit. All of these things, all of these collectively, I would have perfect. And now it's like, oh no. No, that I can't. It's not that I can't. It's just that it's not realistic. And so you can only do what you can do. And you can only try your best to do what you can do. Which means that you'll have opportunities to do things, but that does not always mean that you can do them. You'll have opportunities to do things, but that doesn't always mean that you don't have to do them. You don't have to go after that thing, even though you have the opportunity to. And then sometimes you can do something even though it's not the right thing to do. And that's a very tricky situation to be in, because it's almost like the inner trickster is trying to play on your own inner sense of stability. And you have to get to a point where you are able to tell people, at least internally, to go kick rocks with no socks. Because there are people out here that don't care about your opinion. They don't want to know about your opinion. Especially the modern woman. I'm not speaking about virtuous women that are pure here. I'm speaking about the modern woman who, what I've grown to see over the past few months is that the modern woman wants a clown. She wants a clown so that she can control the clown. She does not want a man of substance that is a real mofo. And at first, when I realized this, I didn't realize the full spectrum of the picture. And so at first I started to think about what I was doing wrong. And I was like, well, what exactly, like, why is this woman going after those kinds of guys? Like, I'm not trying to brag here, but it's like, I am above those guys. I know I am. I know I have what it takes to be in a long-term committed relationship, which is what I'm looking for anyway, at least in that situation. And there was this woman that portrayed herself to be a feminine woman, but she was actually a modern woman. And this is why you have the vetting process, ladies and gentlemen, because men do this too. Men can come across as traditional men, quote unquote, and they end up playing games with you. And women, you have to accept that this man is playing a game, and you have to acknowledge the fact that you have to move on to somebody else, even though you may want that guy. What good are you going to do if you're looking for a long-term relationship with God, where you are actually submitted to God already? Why would you waste your time with such a guy? And men, why would you waste your time with such a woman? So this woman, this modern woman that I vetted, thank God, we were only talking for a little bit before I realized, okay, nope, we got to cut this off. And not look back either. Learn the lesson and not look back. And that's exactly what I did, because I realized, like, she wanted to use her... She pretended to be pure, but it turned out that she wanted to try to use her sexual allure to keep me in, like, the orbit. But whenever I started to grow closer, she would drift away. And when I drifted back, she came back. And then when I was like, okay, let's see where this goes, and then she would go somewhere else. And it was like, at that point, I just cut it off, because it's like, yep, I've played this game before. Look, you can't win this game against me. I've won this game years ago. Praise God. Again, because there are people that get stuck in that. And you do not want to get stuck in that kind of thing. But this is the spirit of lust that is trying to dominate the dominators of society. Now, being dominant and being controlling are two different things, right? And when you're trying to dominate somebody's will, that's something else as well. Being dominant is just basically being able to hold your ground and delegate tasks. You're not forcing your will upon anybody. But when you're trying to dominate somebody's will, that's when you're trying to control the person. This is what narcissists do. And this is where you can cut ties and say, kick rocks with no socks and move on. Because like I said, many people make promises in the world, but very few keep them. And I'm to the point where I'm actually surprised more if somebody can keep their promise than if they don't. And there's so many times in this life where you just don't have the time. And you have to make that clear by your actions. Make that clear by everything that you do and everything that you say. That this stops. This needs to stop. It's not up to anybody at this time but you to say it. Like, now's the time to make certain decisions. Do you realize the times that we're living in, ladies and gentlemen? The world is getting more and more weird by the day. Sexuality is being just accepted within the younger generation. Like, the craziest thing that I saw at the store the other day, and I live in a fairly conservative place, like politically anyway, at least so I thought. And the other day I saw a mother with her 3 or 4 girls that were probably 15 and 15, like 10 to 15 years old. And they came in the coffee shop, and the mom was a fat, obese lady with huge glasses and just really messed up hair. And then all, like, just everywhere, you know, just didn't look put together. And the 3 children, 4 children, I can't remember if it's 3 or 4, but the 3 or 4 children that were all girls were basically wearing what a 20-year-old or a 21-year-old woman would be wearing in Vegas. It was absolutely insane. And I was appalled by what I saw. Like, this mother is, like, this is like, their mother is going to be what these children turn into later down the road. So as I was in line, waiting to get my stuff, and these people came in right behind me, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. It's like, wow, this has become the norm. This is being normalized in our society. What the actual hell? It was very just concerning for me to see this, because if this is happening in a very, at least a semi-conservative place to live politically, I can only imagine the liberal places. And I'm not I don't like to talk politics on this channel too much, though I do think that it's important to know what's going on politically in the political sphere for anybody. But my political affiliation is Thaddeus. Like, I am just me when it comes to politics, because I don't really fit into any certain category or either side per se. I have very nuanced points of view. But I still genuinely think that sexualizing the younger kids is absolutely wrong. And it's a shame. Like, shame on that woman for not only letting herself go, because there's just no excuse to be fat. Like, there's just no excuse. I'm not saying you can't have brownies and ice cream once in a while. But my goodness, have some frickin' discipline. Because now you're teaching your children that it's okay to do this, and it's absolutely not. And this is coming from somebody that was once fat himself. I remember looking myself in the mirror and seeing the gluttony and just the, like, this glazed over look that I had in my eyes at the time when I was actively pursuing lust. I just was stuck in the world. And I knew it was wrong. But thank goodness and thank God that I was insightful enough to realize that I need to change my ways. Because apparently that doesn't happen as often and as much as we would like to think. So again, you cannot reason with the emotionally incompetent. But the spiritually rebellious, such as myself, I would consider myself spiritually rebellious. I've done some pretty rebellious things. And it was for the greater good in my estimation. Not just for myself, but for everybody around me. And it played out well. God approved of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here making these videos. So, for me, being spiritually rebellious is okay. I'm not saying that we need to break laws or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that you have a birthright to freedom of speech and freedom of thought, and to search how to raise your awareness and consciousness in the ways that you deem to be appropriate for you. And if it doesn't work, you have to recognize that. So with that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. And until next time,